Artists, animators, musicians, creators. All Final Space, all the time. Bringing you exclusive fan experiences and cast and crew interviews, this is Into Final Space, hosted by Gabe Jones.
So glad to welcome everyone to a brand new year and a brand new episode of the Into Final Space podcast. If you haven't seen it yet, we announced that the voice of Ash Graven, Ashley Birch, will be joining us on the podcast coming up, so we are very, very excited about that. But today, I'm excited to welcome another member of the incredible Retake animation team from Shadow Machine to chat with you today. If you haven't listened to Marissa Fonte's episode from Volume 1 of the podcast, she also spoke about Retake animation. But we're here with Kitty Tomblin today to talk about Retake animation on the second season of Final Space. All right, Kitty is on Skype with me today. Very excited to have her joining us. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Oh, no problem.
So just to start off, would you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your art background, where you've come from?
Yes. All right. So my name is Kitty Tomblin. You may see me in credits of various shows as Kitty Tomblin or Kitty A. Tomblin, depending on the studio. I am a graduate of the Savannah College of Art and Design, class of 2016. I was on both the Savannah and Atlanta campuses, and I have worked on shows such as Bless the Hearts, Rick and Morty, and Final Space.
Awesome. Yeah, and go Atlanta. That's where my studio's at. So can you talk a little bit about exactly what you did on Final Space?
Yes, I was a retake animator. I tried to do effects animation as often as I could when it called for it. And retakes, basically, you will do anything from changing lip sync or an eyeline direction to like even complete reanimation of a scene if it calls for it.
Yeah, and that's perfect. I'm about to ask you exactly what retake animation is for those who don't know. But yeah, what was it like? You know, how'd you get into Final Space? Pun intended.
See, I got in contact with Shadow Machine around when I was planning on moving from LA to Canada. The timing wasn't quite right yet. I got a job at a different studio called 6 Point Harness on a show called Cosmos. I was there for a little while, and after Cosmos ended, I was offered a position on Final Space. And I was like, oh, absolutely. Like, this sounds like a great show. And I had previewed it like season 1 before I went into the interview, and I was like, wow, this is so beautifully animated. I'd love to be a part of this. And then I was a part of it, and it was a wonderful adventure, and I had so much fun on it.
Yeah, and what was it like to come into a show that already had a first season, but joining that season 2 team?
A lot of the rules were already established, which I do enjoy. There's also an appeal to being on season 1 of a show where it's kind of like figuring stuff out. But I also really do like the regiment of like, hey, we have this established, so this is what you do, this is how you do the style, and all of that.
Yeah, and season 1 was, of course, very ambitious, but like you said, it was new, it was fresh, it was figuring things out. And season 2 kind of took everything from season 1 and kind of enhanced it about 100 times over. What's it like to work on such an ambitious animated project?
Oh my gosh, it was like unlike anything I'd ever really done before. There's a lot of the rigs are so beautifully made. They're made by Jamfield in Canada. And like I rigged myself, and I opened these rigs up and I was like, whoa, like I've never seen anything like this. These are incredible. And I had a lot of fun like in my free time, like moving them around and seeing how they worked. Especially the lip sync. The lip sync's really cool. If you look at it if you watch it compared to other shows, it's very smooth. And we make sure to like make it as smooth as possible.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, can you explain what a rig is?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're fine.
In build-based, or as some people call it, puppet animation, the rigs they are built from scratch in a program such as Flash or Kingdom Harmony. In Final Space, we use Harmony. And basically, it's the body of the character, and you kind of move it around like a paper cutout. If you've ever seen any of the Lottie Reiniger films. It's basically like that, but on Toon Boom Harmony. And so basically, you have to make this character walk across a screen, jump, run around, do backflips, and you have to do that completely with the rig. And one of the challenges of using a rig animation, a rig build, is to not break it, and or else like it'll look absolutely crazy. So you got to make it looking like the character throughout the entire time you're animating it. Keep it on model and make sure it looks appealing, and like make sure Gary looks like Gary per se.
Yeah, definitely. And so along with that, retake animation comes a little bit towards the end of production. Am I correct on that one? um,
Yeah.
yeah, and so how often really did, because we talked to Janfield and heard a lot from them. How often do you really have to go back and fix stuff, and what are those situations that makes that happen?
Sometimes there will be like a re-recording of a dialogue line, and even like if there's just one word changed, if you play that over the old lip sync track, it'll definitely not look right. So you have to go in and basically be like, all right, we got to get this to match, or there could be like a character entering from like screen right instead of screen left, all of that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And we've of course talked to Marissa Fonte on the show, which was a really fun episode. But what's it like working with the retake team?
Oh, it was so much fun. There were 5 of us, and then we also had a supervisor. We were like a little like we were our own team squad. We were always like talking with each other because we were in our own little like secluded area in the studio, and so we were always around each other. So we got to like talk, laugh, point out cool things and scenes to each other, be like, "Hey, get a load of this," and it was great. I miss my team squad so much.
Yeah, and you get that we've talked about this a lot with different guests on the show, of how Final Space is always kind of just this big canvas of little pieces that people add in. Would you say that you feel like you have a lot of individualism and kind of able to put little inputs in when you can for different scenes that you've done animation on?
Yeah, a little bit. I would say mainly in the effects animation I added. There's a wonderful team of effects animators at Jamfilm. I believe they're headed by Ryan Adams. And I actually got to kind of like I found him. We found each other on Twitter, and so like we're like friends now, and it's really cool. And like sometimes there would be like an effect missing because we added a scene, and since like I love doing effects animation, I'd be like, "Ooh, I'll do it." And so I'd add it, and I would get to like sometimes add my own little flair in there. There's the scene in the last episode where Avocado is being like basically exorcised of Invictus. The scene before the close up of Invictus leaving his body, there's like a lot of like twisting around like animation. It's a blink and you'll miss it thing, but that's my shot of effects, and I had
Awesome.
so much fun with that shot, and I wish I can put it on my reel, but it was like literally so short that I'm like, oh well, at least it's in my heart that I'll get to see it.
Yeah, that's great. Um, and I guess along with that, do you have a favorite episode, a favorite moment from an episode from this season?
I do. I was watching episode 7 the first times they met right before this call, because I was like, man, I got to get back in that Final Space mood. And I didn't really do any effects or anything like major on that one. I did a lot of lip sync changes. There were a couple line changes, but I just love the blend of like humor and then like heartfelt moments in that episode where I was like laughing my butt off, but also crying at the same time. So I really enjoy the episodes like that.
Cool. Yeah, it's a there's a lot of really great moments from the second season. It was really fun to watch. But yeah, and then for those of our artists out there who are interested in possibly getting into retake animation, what's some advice you have for them?
Definitely build up a reel. The first thing companies will usually ask for is your reel, which is your combination of your greatest animation hits. And depending on the college you go to, like you'll either have like a bunch of class exercises, or you'll have, or your like peers will work on their own films, and you'll get to like be a part of that. I had a lot of like stuff from friends' films on my reel, and I try to be as like various as possible in my skills. But like also sometimes it's good to have a focus. Like my focus is effects, and that actually got me my first job in Atlanta. So like definitely have kind of show that you can do whatever you're assigned, but also kind of have your like calling card of, oh yeah, this is my thing. I can do this. And usually that'll make you stand out in a crowd.
Yeah, that's definitely great advice. And our last question, I of course have to ask, who is your favorite character?
Ash, I love Ash. I'm actually in the talks to get a tattoo of her on my right calf, because I just love her so much, and she was so much fun, and she's like a character with like effect powers, her like auras and powers and stuff. I fell in love with her right away, and I was like, I love her.
Yeah, she's a really good character, and she was a super awesome addition to the team squad this season, and I think we're all really excited to see what she's got in store next season.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, definitely. I think that's about it. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Oh, no problem.
And that is it from Kitty. Huge thanks to her for joining me on the show. Be sure to check her out on Instagram at Dead Cowgirl. She's got some exceptional artwork on there, including some stuff from Final Space. We've got more episodes coming up, releasing every other week coming up, so you'll see our next one on February the 7th. Until next time, I'm Gabe Jones. You can find me at Gabriel W. Jones on Instagram and Twitter, and keep up with the show on Instagram and Twitter at Into Final Space. And come chat with me on the official Final Space Discord. We'd love to see you there. We'll see you next time on Into Final Space. Thanks, guys.